Welcome back to another Habs Nation show with the hockey coach, Coach Recchi, directly for beautiful country of Thailand on amazing great Thursday night, August 8th, 2024. We are 60 days from the beginning of the season of the 2024-2025 in NHL. The first night will be October 8th. Yes, we have two games. At some point prior to that, October 4th and 5th, I think is in Czechia. I think it's Minnesota. I can't remember, Buffalo or Devils. Anyhow, but we're getting close of the upcoming season. But tonight we are back after some kind of difficulty on the internet in Thailand. It was not only me. It was only like, I don't know, over like 1.5 million people, I think, no internet. For one company, so I don't feel alone on that situation. But we are back. Internet is back. Hopefully, we'll be all right until the next 90 minutes. We're going to consider what we talked yesterday, the final year of the front players on Montreal Canadiens, and then we'll talk about the missing piece of the Montreal Canadiens, maybe to become a successful team in the playoff, and then we'll talk about the Untouchable player for the Montreal Canadiens. We have more contents to talk about. We have another update for Demidov. We have a couple of news around the NHL. That's what we got for you guys on the next 90 minutes of this special delivery show of the Habs Nation Notebook. Usually is the Wednesday night. Don't forget, our next show will be Sunday night with Mr. Nartap, and then it's going to talk about the Habs Weekly. And then don't forget the big show of the Montreal Expose. I always said Canadian Montreal Expose is going to be August 20, 2024. It's going to be about everything, and for that night, we're going to talk about players and everything, your best memories of the Montreal Expose. We're going to hang in there, guys, all night long. I don't have no time. Only thing I know, we start at 8:30. Until the end. So we see what we can bring to you. And maybe we have people going to talking about the Montreal Expose. The beginning was in 1969 with Jane Mock. And then we can go all the way talking about all these front players play with the Montreal Expose, the Pac Jory. Remember that stadium. Then we got the Olympic Stadium, of course. And then we're going to talk about different things happening with the Montreal Expose. If you have any question about the Montreal Canadiens NHL, and then, of course, of the everything about the NHL prospect, you send an email at askcoachfrenchie@gmail.com. So that's the way to reach me. I'm going to respond to you. I have a couple of people. I think we got about 7, 8 the last couple of days. So we appreciate each one of you. If I don't do live streaming about the mailbag, I do reply to you directly. So we have a great conversation each other. And we're increasing. Now we're 81, 86 subscribers. Then we try to get more people. So the only way you can helping us is to sharing our channel to your friends, family, and your social media. That'd be great. About that, we have a couple of people pop up at this point. But now, they're in the great room. Remember when the season starts? The training camp, the main camp, right? The fans are excited. The players are great. So excited to be back on the ice with the teammates. They smell great, and they're looking for the upcoming season. But they are right now in the green room, and they can't wait to talk to each one of you tonight. And they are the co-hosts. Again, they are both together, the best duo of the Hockey Nation. I'm talking about who, ladies and gentlemen? Let's further ado to welcome him the house from Toronto. We call him the legend. And from Hawkesbury, Mr. Marko Labby. That's a good one.
Wow.
Good evening. Wow, Coach. That's pretty good. You'll give Celine Dion a run for her money.
Impressive.
The last time I did that was John Boccabella. Just kidding. But there's another story for Montreal Expose. 3 people knock the door, ladies and gentlemen. When we start the show, and Luc Lapoisson is in the house at 8:38. This is going to be a great show.
That's it.
The Mr. Angel is in the house. Luc, welcome back. The retire of the Mr. Angel. Mr. Luc Lapoisson, Martin Besnet knock the door. Tony Légaré is in the house. Tony Lecarre, welcome back. LDP is in the house from Newfoundland. Maybe he finished his gym. We have Randy Walkman, the man of the Flames, is in the house. Claude Richard, de la capitale d'Ottawa, du Canada. Butch Bouchard is in the house. Hopefully doing well. Butch, glad to see you around. Gary Conway, the best driver UPS around the world, is in the house also. We have Mr. RG Galabo at the beginning, was with us with all this fun information about the Linka. Gretzky Cup, we're going to talk about this night. Well, a lot of great things to talk about tonight. Like I mentioned, watch out. Look like opportunity absolutely about this one over there. We'll talk about NHL news, at news, the 2024 Linka Gretzky Cup, and then the final year of this fun player for the Montreal Canadiens, and then the Untouchable players for the Montreal. And the missing piece, I did all 3 fun videos during the subject of those. If you follow up, this it will be the part number 2. Yesterday, we apologize for that one. We have a new subscriber. The Polar Bear production is in the house. Welcome back.
Well,
hey, welcome.
And then we have a video today, Demidov versus Michkov, ladies and gentlemen. And then, if you consider, we did the jet breakdown. It's going to be released tomorrow. Tomorrow. It was going to be the Winnipeg Jet with NRTAP. We're going to talk about the breakdown of that thing, what it looked like for the upcoming season. So we have a lot of things to talk about tonight. Patrick Lawhite, I don't know if he won yesterday with Anderson and Freeman and NRTAP. I don't know what happened with them, but we'll see what they got tonight. It's Soto. With 2 rounds each, and then Anderson again. Here you go with Anderson. Look like Anderson is on the hot streak on this moment. Look like he's doing well. Hopefully he's doing good. Luc Fortin is back in the house. Welcome back. Thanks. You have an amazing, great week so far. One more day to go. NHL news. The big news of the day was the retire of the Edmonton defenseman at 31 years old, Oskar Klefbom, 19th overall pick in 2011. He did not play any game since he got the shoulder injury twice season, 2021, 2022. Play 7 seasons with Edmonton Oilers, over 378 games. I don't know if you have any comments you want to talk about that defenseman. For me, I think he was a good defenseman. Obviously, the injuries put him a term of his career very too early. And imagine if the Oilers had that kind of defenseman, 6'3", 212, big defenseman. I really always liked that defenseman, but obviously the injuries did not help him to have a good career in NHL. So, Marko, let's talk about Oskar.
Well, before we get into Oskar Klefbom, Coach, did I catch that correctly in the opening? And you said that your teammates smell good in the locker room?
I said the teammates smell good. No, I said that. Oh, I'm talking about the locker room.
Okay. Well, I know Entertap. From what I hear.
Well, that's me. I'm far away from you, by the way, but that's another subject for another time.
Why am I in the middle? Why am I in the middle?
For Oskar Klefbom, I'll put this in the category of, he wasn't retired already. I know that he had that surgery, shoulder surgery a while ago. I think Pierre Rude has that saying in French, dans la catégorie, ne le cherchez plus. That's kind of where I put Oskar Klefbom. But you're right, like really good career, like left-handed, really good two-way defenseman. Was pretty important for Edmonton. It was probably their top.
No choice, Mark, you did it again.
Whoa. Woo.
Mark, and you had $20. Thank you so much, Mark, from the super chat. Some hype about that one over there. We're working to create a new super chat, guys. I'm getting close. You'll be surprised on that one. I'm getting close.
That super chat from here.
I think I'm going to get more super chat next year because that's coming very soon.
Very nice. Well, maybe you can donate some of that. Maybe you can donate some of that super chat money to the telecom company that runs your internet, Coach. Oh my God! By the way, you should definitely share that video that you shared with us with the cables outside your. Wow, that was pretty interesting. But back to Oskar Klefbom. Yeah, really good career. It's a shame he went to cut it a bit short. Left-handed offensive defenseman. I don't recall his numbers, but I think on average he was probably averaging about 45, 50 points a game. Wasn't the best defensive defenseman, but definitely is a guy that you could have on your power play. So it was a pretty big loss for Edmonton at the time, and definitely took them a while to kind of build their back end back with him out. So, too bad for him. Definitely cut his career short. But I'm assuming that, did he still have an existing contract? Is that why he hadn't officially retired yet? I'm assuming.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And our top?
Yeah, I would just add, he was their number one. I think he was 18th or 19th overall, something like that. And unfortunately, a guy that never really recovered. I think he only had one full season that he played, and he had around 40 points or thereabouts. And he was always down with some kind of injury or another, and never really lived up to the expectations that Edmonton initially went into the deal with. But it's unfortunate. Sometimes that happens, and that's the way it goes. But yeah, you're right. I'd kind of forgotten about him over the last couple of years altogether.
Yeah, let's look at his stats here, guys. So actually, so 7 years. So let's see. He had
I think it was around
12 points,
12
points, 38 points, 21 points, 28. So yeah, not as many points as I thought, to be honest. So more like a 30, 35 point guy. But yeah, he was actually drafted by Edmonton. I thought maybe he was somebody that they got by trade, but yeah, good little career. I'm sure he'll be comfortable, and time to move on for the rest of us. So
here we go.
Oskar Klefbom.
Let's move on to the next news. Recchi again got fired or removed of his title of assistant coach with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's free. Martin St. Louis is looking for someone. My question is to you, do you think the Montreal Canadiens should looking for Recchi to be an assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens for the upcoming season, take the spot of Alex Burrows? In our top, what do you think about that proposal?
Well, Mark, from all accounts, he's always been very good in terms of working with younger talent. He's always taken younger players, no matter what team he's been on, Boston, Montreal, early days in Pittsburgh. He's always taken younger players under his wing and really sort of helped them advance in their career, no matter where he's played. And I say, why not? If there's a position available, it'd be great to have him back. He's one of those people that has hockey in their veins forever, and he might be wishing to pursue a career in coaching. So this is a good way to sort of get indoctrinated into it.
Listen, I love Mark Recchi. He's great player, and he's got a couple of years coaching in his belt. So, but first of all, we don't have confirmation necessarily that St. Louis is actively looking to add someone else. I think Kent Hughes, but somebody from management said that they weren't necessarily looking to replace Burrows, but they could. And I think that they were going to be discussing it after the draft, right? So maybe they are looking for someone. To be honest, even though I really like Mark Recchi, I'm not sure he would be the type of guy that I would target. Even though I love him, and he's a great fit in terms of him being in Montreal. I just think that we have that profile already. Like, we have ex-NHL player type coaches, that are more offensive, could he bring value to the power play or something like that? Sure. But if they're going to bring in a coach, I would rather it be somebody that can bring a little bit of value and maybe give some input on the hybrid man-to-man system, defensive system that they play. Because I'm not a huge fan of it. So I'd much rather they bring somebody that will help them tighten up their own zone, more so than somebody that's just going to almost duplicate what I feel Martin St. Louis already kind of brings, which is, the pedigree of a really successful NHL offensive player. So listen, I won't be mad if they do it. I really like Mark Recchi, but I just don't it wouldn't be my first choice.
I don't know. I think I would like to get a player with more experience with the young players. I think a coach been with the NCAA, UCHL, on the CHL, WHL, have a good record, and then bring that kind of relationship with the young core. I think that will helping or go with the chemistry of Martin St. Louis. All the three players, all the three coaches, they have their experience in NHL. They play in NHL. They have a good career in NHL, so they know how the game works. They know, but I think the communication of what the new generation is or the new players coming in the league, and they've been with around them for the last 5, 7, 8 years. And NCAA or like I said, junior. I think that would add another tools they don't have inside of that organization. I think they have everything right now to set up the system. The system is a system. It's not like complicated to do this, honestly. It just, I think, will be another asset for them to have a coach like that way. So we'll see what happens with that for sure. But we have a few people knock the door in the chat. A2 is in the house. Thanks again, Mark Elliott. Mark, and then we have N26 knock the door. Randy talk about also the Recchi. Mark talk about Michkov. It's not the first one. A few people talk about Michkov the last 2 days. Tony the Mark is in the house. Welcome back, Tony. And everybody, don't forget, please, to click on the likes. It's a special edition of Thursday night because yesterday we have some kind of difficulties. We're going to continue to talk about this. Kovalev would be the guy to coach the power play from Gary Cournoyer. Kovalev, we'll see what's happening about that one.
You speak English? Does he speak English now?
No, he speaks English fine. But again, guys,
I know.
Not too many teams have a lot of success bringing ex players. We all love these ex players and everything, but you have to think critically about kind of what does the coaching staff need, and I think they have a pretty young, inexperienced coaching staff already. So I would rather them bringing in somebody that has a little bit more experience that can kind of complement the existing team that's already there.
Yeah, Christian Shaw is in the house, KK is in the house, and then Martin Bazinet talk about Favreau. For me, it would be more à Laval for Favreau. Barkov can teach the play sign language for Demidov. Maybe that's the one over there. Then Justin talk about Demidov. Look like remind him Kovachev. Steve Bélanger talk about Guy Boucher. Steve, welcome in the house. The reason behind Steve Boucher, it looked like there was some kind of relationship was not very good between Martin St. Louis and Guy Boucher during the time he played with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I don't know if this relationship is over and now they move on with their life. But this is one reason I think the fans here talk about the fact like it was a bit a red flag for that one. I think for me it was a great save for me. Guy Boucher would be a great asset for the Montreal Canadiens, but I can understand now the relationship between St. Louis and from him, Guy Boucher. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is about the RFA and NHL. So we're going to talk about Montreal Canadiens. They still have a lot of great players with no contract for the upcoming season. Swimmen, Raymond, Zeder, Jarvis, Harley, Perfetti, Mercer, Bernier, Zillinger. This is not like bottom six. We talk about a lot of great players at a young age, under 25 years old. And that would cost a lot of money for Boston Bruins to get Swimmen. And the rest of those, Detroit still have a lot of money, but they have to pay Raymond and Zeder. What I'm going to ask you, this could be a good indication for the future with the Montreal Canadiens if you want to sign new players. When you're going to sign the second-term contract, everything like that, we know can use is pretty good on the template. But how you feel about those names I just mentioned to you? What you maybe select one of them, their selection, or maybe there could be a problem for the team, or what your expectation, or what they can get. So, Marko, start with that one.
Yeah, I kind of expected this to be a bit of an issue this summer, Coach, because kind of like when we were talking about templates and everything and how the cap is going to play out. I think it's still going to be a little bit of a shell shock for fans and for organizations that like these agents are probably using not next year's salary cap as the template to base what the AAV should be. They're more looking at what the cap is going to be in the next 3-4 years, because in most cases these players are probably going to be signing deals that that are maybe not just bridges but longer term deals, right? So if you're an agent, it's one thing like that like Suzuki or Slavkovsky to bet on yourself and go a little bit under market to stay with the right team, but you don't want to be too under, right? Like like look at Pacioretty. Remember, like he ended up firing his agent because the contract was such a great deal that Bergevin signed Pacioretty for. And so I think the problem is that the league is kind of in a limbo, right? Like we've been on a frozen cap for 4 years now, it seems like, if not, like I think maybe a little less than that. So agents are probably eyeing all the new revenue that's coming into the league, and they're thinking, hey, like I'm basing the percentage of this player on the cap at 95 million cap rather than 88, right, in a couple of years. So that's probably making it a bit more complicated. In the Bruins video, Coach, that we did, we talked about this. It's a little strange how Sweeney kind of went about his business here. You like, and you compare it to what Hughes did with his goaltending last year. Like he made sure to sign Montembeault before he traded Allen, because he was, concerned that he would give Montembeault all the leverage by trading Allen, right? So that's essentially what Boston has done here now, right? They've traded Allmark, and now Swayman has all the leverage.
To the wall.
Yeah. And like, I if I'm not mistaken, I think they have about 8.5 left on the cap. And, I think he's asking for around 8. And he's I don't think it's crazy for him to ask that either. Right. So there's some rumblings today that Boston might even need to move some more things around to make this happen. So you're right about Detroit. Like they definitely do have a little bit more room, but those are two really, really big core pieces that they need to lock down for long term here. Like you can't go wrong with these players. Like you need to lock them up. For other ones, like you're looking, like other than Jarvis and Harley, I think that whole bottom row that you have here, Perfetti, Mercer, Bernier, and Sillinger, they've yet to really kind of break through and perform, right? So I could see them maybe taking more like a 2-year deal, like a show me deal. But really, I think all of them on that top line, including Harley, like Harley's had a really strong season last year. Dallas, definitely needs to lock up and get a bit younger on the back end. So I suspect that all the ones on the top here are going to get done, and there'll be longer term deals. But it's probably a little bit of like I said, a little bit of a strange negotiation, because the agents are looking into the future and the teams, they're calibrating to that, right? Like they're like a, like what used to be a $5 million player is going to be a $7 million player. And that's a big adjustment to come to, right? Like, and you're kind of betting on the fact that the revenue will continue to come in, and the cap will go up. So interesting. We'll see how it plays out, but at least it gives us something to talk about, Coach. What about offer sheets? Who would you offer sheet? Who would you offer sheet on this list?
Just stay away. Stay away.
It's now the with the salary cap, Marco. The rules change also for what you have to give back now when you pass the. Remember, like Kokanemi, I think it was not Kokanemi, but Sebastian Aho was 6 point or 8 point, was just under for a couple of dollars. Now you go there, an extra one first round pick. So it will be difficult, I think, for offer a sheet. What I'm interested in is to see the contract of Zeder. Can he get the contract $7 million, $8 million, the same way like Quinn Hughes example? Harley is another one. I'm very interested in what the Dallas
Harley's the big one.
You have to get under Eskinen for sure. That's my second player over there. And then Swayman as a goaltender. I think Swayman could get a $6.5, $7 million, on my opinion. Mercer don't have a great year. Perfetti don't have a great year. Bernier don't have a great year. Zeliker is not there yet. Raymond will be interesting. So Raymond is another one where I think he could be an increasing about $4 million. Can he go at $5 million?
Oh
But they
yeah,
will have to sign him a long term for Raymond and
Raymond
Zegras.
for
So
sure. Raymond for sure is going to be over 5 million. Coach, I think
Oh yeah,
Swayman is going to be more like 7.5. Like, there's no way they're getting him at
the
6.5.
goaltender is not
yeah.
enough, Marco.
Oh yeah,
It's.
that's what he's
I think you're
asking
going to
for.
need more. You're going to need
Oh
more
yeah,
probably.
oh yeah.
The
That's why
thing
it's
is, I mean, it's not uncommon, to be totally honest, that you still have players that are unsigned at this time of the year. You know, it's a back and forth. It's a waiting game by both sides. They try to sort of play it out to the last possible moment. But when you look at these, 10 names that you got here, they're all key cornerstone pieces of their respective teams. So I can't possibly see any of them not being signed or letting it go even further, because the longer this goes on, the more sort of animosity builds between the player, the agent, the team itself. Even though it's a business, first and foremost, it kind of destroys a little bit the chemistry that a team tries to get going when you get to this stage. But like Marko said earlier, I mean, Boston made a strategical mistake there with Swayman and allowing Allmark to leave before they signed him. So we'll see what that ends up being, but I could see it being close to 8.
Yeah, I agree. An interesting one is Beniers too, guys. Like, if you're if you're in
He'll be fine.
Beniers' if you're in his camp, like, you're not ready to take a long-term deal, right? Because he really struggled the last 2 seasons. So, if you're him, like, he needs to bounce back, right? So I don't see that being a big number. Yet, he won the Calder Trophy, had a really good rookie season, and
He
then kind
did,
of
yeah.
has taken a step back here, right? So probably, unless he's going to look for security and willing to take a lower number, but I wouldn't advise him of that. If I was his agent, I would say, like, just take a bridge and kind of
Yeah,
rebound.
that's the way to go.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the
All
way to
right.
go with a bridge with him.
The first one, Montreal Canadiens, we have some kind of update for Demidov. He did not play today. They have a game today, the SKA. And they have a kind of expert,
Ranking, the
Rush,
ranking.
is a Rush sport expert or something like that. Is it Russian sports? I think there's the social media or the website. They do some
Yeah,
kind of
RSK.
the ranking, the
Like a
best
ranking.
player under 20 years old on that country. And Demidov is behind Michkov, but Demidov got a more first pick as a position. So I don't know if you want to talk about this a bit. And I'll talk first, then following by Marco.
Well, I think it's normal. I wouldn't worry about that. I think that they're both going to be up to speed and ready to go. Um, in terms of their ranking, I mean, at this point, I think we'll get into it a little bit later. We're going to make some comparisons between the two players, but I mean, they haven't shown anything at the NHL level, right? It's all about anticipation and what skill sets they bring. They bring a lot of similar aspects, but they also bring different aspects to the game for their respective teams. So it's one of those things that we'll see who sort of acclimatizes to things first. Uh, the only thing with Demidov that worries me is he likes, and even Michkov to a lesser degree, but he likes to really go up the center ice a lot of times and cut across, and you have to be careful there that you have to keep your head up and make sure that you're not getting hit, because that's where a majority of the open ice hits occur and injuries occur there as well. So that's one area I think in the development of the player they're going to have to really emphasize for him to be careful about as they move on.
Marco?
Yeah, guys, like, I don't understand how you can really evaluate this at all, right? Like, you can evaluate, like, we can talk about the kind of players that they are and what they project to be, right? But to rank them, what I compare this to, like, I think it's natural that people would rank Michkov ahead of Demidov right now, just because he's played more games. He's a year older. He's played in the KHL more games and all that, right? Like, what I compare it to, I guess maybe because I've been watching so much Olympics, in track and field, when they do like the long runs, right? And you have to kind of go around the corner, and it looks like somebody's way ahead, right? But then there's somebody on the corner, and then when they turn the corner, whoops, all of a sudden, like, they look a lot closer. Yeah, like, it's based on lanes where you are, and when you turn the corner, you look a lot closer to where the person was leading before. Now, I didn't explain that right, but you kind of get what I mean, right? Like, so Demidov is a little bit behind Michkov just because he hasn't played as many games, all that. So I don't know. I don't know how much value there is in kind of comparing them. Like, just based on
It's
the
hard.
profile. Yeah, like, just based on the profile of player, though, like, from what I understand, both players are, and watching highlights in a couple of games of both players, I like Demidov style more. I like the type of player more because I find he's a little bit more well-rounded than Michkov. I'm not sure if
Absolutely.
Michkov has as good of a B game as Demidov will be. Like, if Demidov isn't scoring goals, he's going to be able to do other things. And if Michkov isn't scoring goals, he's not Ovechkin, right? He's not going to be able to nail some, like, be physical out there, have punishing hits and stuff like that. So, think of like, to me, the way that I think of Michkov, he's like a very deluxe version of Caulfield, right? Like, and there's been a lot of talk about that recently. Some talk about why Montreal didn't pick Michkov is because they already had Caulfield. Like, they're similar kind of players, right? Shoot first, offensively dynamic kind of players. So for me, hard to rank them, and it's quite subjective too, right? Like, if you're somebody who values goal scoring a lot more, then you might rank Michkov ahead of Demidov. But for me, I always look for more complete players that are going to be able to uh, give you more, and be able to kind of, like, contribute to the team in other ways when they're not producing. So I think for me, I would rank Demidov ahead of Michkov, or I value the type of player Demidov is more than Michkov, but that's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And it's also the character as well, right? Like, you got to wonder why a lot of teams passed up on Michkov, and he went a lot later than Demidov did, and a lot of teams were high on the type of person that they and how he interviewed with a lot of teams, and that's Demidov. He seems like a very easygoing, pleasant individual, but we'll see when the time
Intense,
comes.
competitive. Like, he
Yeah,
looks competitive. Like, he
competitive,
sounds like
yeah.
a good guy. Yeah.
And he seems to have, I mean, both do, but I think I see it a little bit more in Demidov. He has that, it's not arrogance, but it's confidence in his game. And he's not afraid to show that. It sort of comes out in everything he says and does, but it doesn't come off as arrogant at all.
Yeah, and just to answer, so real deal, like, we are a Habs podcast, right? So people might, kind of listen to what we just said, and, like, how we would rank Demidov in the head of Michkov because we're Habs fans and we drafted Demidov. But again, it's very subjective, right? Like, if you like, again, it's my personal opinion that if you compare Michkov and Demidov in terms of the type of player they are, then it's just like a personal preference of what type of player. Like, just because they're two young Russian players doesn't mean they're the same type of players. They're very different types of players, right? So
Yeah.
again, it's going to come down to how well they execute and how well they're committed and integrate into the NHL. So it's hard to predict 100%. What I think we're saying here is that we like the type of player that Demidov is, and that's kind of what, like, he's still very skillful, elite skill, and all that. But at the same time, I think I'm a little bit more comfortable with his B game than I would be with Michkov,
Mhm.
right? So for those of you watching thinking that we're just kind of biased because of that, then I don't think so. Like, it's really just
No,
our
in
analysis.
all fairness, Marko, we preempted it by saying it's difficult to really judge them at this stage because they
Yeah.
haven't stepped on the ice on an NHL surface and an NHL team. And let's face it, all the clips that we have, that's what we're basing a lot of the opinions on, right? And those clips, they're not made of bad plays. They're always their best optimal plays that they try to sell their game on. And so it's just based on that. Down the road, we'll tell in terms of not only what kind of player they are, but what character they are or have, and what they bring to the table when the going gets tough, because that's where the true essence of the player comes out.
Yeah, but when you evaluate a player, you're not looking for the character. You're looking really when you clips, you watch.
Oh,
It's about, yeah, you cannot evaluate. You're not going to tell me if I evaluate a player, I have to figure out his character. I'm a sit
not from
and the scout. I
not from a
cannot
clip,
figure out
coach.
his
Not from a
character
clip.
when I'm watching him play hockey.
No, but when I'm interviewing him, that's what I'm looking for.
But this is not part of the evaluation of players. This is the part when you
Oh,
Sure it
recruit
is.
a players. This is a big
No,
thing.
no.
When you evaluate a players, you don't looking. If I evaluate, I did Demidov, Michkov. I cannot put the character on the play to characteristic a player versus another players. Is a character. It's not a part of his vision, his skating, his shooting, his playmaking, everything like that.
Okay.
It's not an attribute or a category on evaluate a players when you compare two players.
I don't know.
You
I
cannot.
disagree with that, coach.
You cannot.
I mean, you want to first and foremost, yes, I agree. You want to first and foremost to evaluate what their talent is, what skills they bring to the table.
That's how you
Absolutely.
evaluate the players. You go with the skill
Yes.
and talent. The character is about
but when
when
it-
you select a players. When you select the
Yeah,
players,
that's what I'm saying.
that's when you're going to consider all the asset. But when you compare two players, you cannot. Gretzky Lemieux. Are you going to tell me the character of Lemieux versus the character of Gretzky make its friends?
No,
So-
but they're both high energy.
Yeah.
By
So
your
what-
definition, then, we should go out there and pick up Pierre-Luc Dubois. Forget the character; he's got a lot of skills.
No,
And he
what
brings-
you go to say now, Pierre Dubois, is it better to Mitch Marner?
Guys, I think what
now
we're
you
not-
compare
like,
two
what-
players in our tap. You compare two players, but you cannot compare the character of the players.
See,
The,
this is where I
the
just,
character
Sure
of the
you
player
can.
fit with the personality of the players. But when you compare two players on the talent skill wise, you have to
Yeah.
you have to look only the who they are as a skill, on the skating, on the vision. The character is an attribute of the personality of the players if he can fit on your
Yes.
team. But when you consider Demidov and then Michkov on the ice, what's the character who's going to make its friends on the skill to carry on the puck and to move on transition and exit,
Coach.
on entrance, on the playmaking, on the driving, on the shooting, on the passing, on the open
Why-
space? The character is not going to
Coach,
change anything.
Why do you think Cole Eiserman went as low as he did this year?
I'm sorry?
Why do you think Cole Eiserman went as low as he did this year? What was the deciding factor for him to go, I think, 19th to the New York Islanders? Why?
I don't think it was his personality or his character. It was more.
Right.
I think
it's the grit. It's the grit. It's the character that he
No.
brings
No,
to the
now
table.
compare Cole Eiserman, okay, with I don't know, with any players. Are you going to characteristic Eiserman less better because of his character?
The teams did.
guys.
Who is going to
did-
score more goal in
but the
NHL? Cole Eiserman, all right, or Chestnut skill, whatever you want to take any NHL draft. Who is going to score more goal?
I don't know.
Guys, I
Which
think
player are we comparing?
the reason that Eiserman went lower wasn't because people were concerned about his character. As a matter of fact, like people like his character, they think he's very competitive and all that stuff, right? Maybe we commented here that maybe sometimes he can get overly frustrated when if the puck's not going in and things like that. I think the biggest concern for some teams was, will his play translate well to the NHL? Will he be able to score goals at the same rate at the higher level than he did in the level that he's playing at? Because his hockey sense, he can't do give and go plays as well as you're going to take away a lot of the kind of like scoring chances that he gets at the NHL level. So that's the reason he went down, is not because of his character, because people were concerned that he would be able to do the same thing that he does now in the NHL. Now, on the question though of character and all that and personality, what you guys didn't mention in your discussion there is that scouting, the reason why scouting is so important to do in person is that when you're just watching the clips on video, you don't get to see necessarily kind of things that are happening a little bit off the ice, right? Like, so if you're looking at Demidov and if you're looking at Michkov, yes, you can kind of see what they're doing on the ice, but what are they doing? Like, are they skating off the bench? Like when they're off camera and you're not seeing on the video, did they skate slow to the bench? Did they tap on their teammates like shoulder pad to congratulate them when they did a good play? Like all subtle things like that. I think that is all these intangibles that you don't necessarily see. And coach, I do think that they impact. I think it is part of someone's skill set and their toolkit, because like Yzerman, it's a good example.
We invite Scott Wheeler here tonight, asking him, when he evaluates players, do you think he considers the character of the player to select 14, 13, or 17, or 19? Or a team select the character because he wants to fit in this team? That's the two ways. The scouting expert, the people sit and the fans understand when he make the ranking. It's not considered the character of the players in front of someone else at the end of the day. Talk about leadership, that's another big deal. But I'm talking about what you see on the ice. That's how they evaluate the players. It's not about what the player does, is a captain or whatever it is. They really consider what they look like on the ice.
Yeah, but more specifically, coach, I think there are some scouts, like even in your scorecards when you were ranking some of the players, it's maybe not called character or leadership or whatever, but you can call it work rate. Work rate is when they see like your engine or whatever. And sometimes that is part of it, like work ethic or whatever it is that you want to call it. Now, character can mean a lot of different things. Obviously, you're not going to understand if somebody has good manners, or tips as Uber driver or whatever the hell you're going to find out in these interviews.
Yeah, that's what we're not talking about. We're not talking
about. I'm talking about there are tangible character related things that happen on the ice that I think can and should impact how you rate players, right? So how that all ties into Demidov is, so again, there are some feedback about Demidov that, again, he's a little bit more one-dimensional than Demidov is, Michkov being a little bit more one-dimensional. So that's why you could make the argument that you rate Demidov in some categories a bit higher, even though Michkov might be a better shooter and he might be a little bit more electric, like, offensively, especially like creating his own chances, right? But ultimately, overall, and how you rate someone, I don't know if character is the right word, right? But ultimately, there's certain things you can't teach a player, right? Like, and to me, work ethic is one of them, right? Like, it's either you're going to do it and you're going to apply yourself to do it. Now, a player might eventually learn themselves how to do it, but you can't really, it's hard to convince someone. Like, you have the odd situation where you have a Joshua Roy where, somebody gets through to him and then he completely changes and starts to put the work in. But that's ultimately the player themselves that has to decide to do that. Compared to someone, great example, Kotkaniemi versus Slafkovsky. Perfect example. Kotkaniemi didn't want to take shit from anyone when he's in the Montreal Canadiens. Didn't want to hear feedback from the coaches, from his teammates, and wasn't really interested in getting better. He just thought that he knew everything. Him and his dad thought that they knew everything about being a hockey player. And then you compare that to Slafkovsky, who comes here and he's an absolute sponge. He wants to listen to everything the coaching staff has to say and is humble enough to take it on. To me, that's character. You can see that on the ice. You can see that because they're improving shift to shift, game to game. That's something you can analyze in a player, in my opinion.
Right. And it's really, I mean, you're right. Maybe character is not the right word in this case, but it's about their grit. It's their willingness to want to win a puck battle, their willingness to go to the extra mile, to try to, win a face-off or even back check. It's all those little intangibles that you need to see. And we're seeing it more and more every year from teams as they're interviewing the players before they're drafted. Why are they interviewing them?
Yeah, but you mess up this. What we try to do is compare two players. we're not talking about a team select one specific player over another sector. I'll give you an example. You talk about Kokanemi. Go get the list of Scott Wheeler, Marko, and look where is Kokanemi on that list. It's 12, 13. Why? Because the skill, the player is not there. So one the players, because you try to tell me the selection of the team, and that's the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about two players when you compare players. It's not about the character of the players make a better players versus another players on the ice. At the end of the day, Michkov is going to be a player is going to have more points at Demidov at the end of his career. He's going to be more oriented on the offensive of this game. He's going to get a Demidov more a full average players. He's going to be better on defensive zone, on the transition, and of course on the entry zone. But Michkov is going to be more point, I believe, overall compared to Demidov because he's more sense offensive side compared to Demidov. We have more explosiveness inside this the puck.
Yeah. So, coach, it all so again, when you say, okay, so you're talking about evaluating players. Well, it really depends what the criteria is, right? So you can have many different criteria when you're evaluating a player. If it's simply who is going to be the most productive in the NHL, then okay, that's one way that you can evaluate the quality or which one ranks above another. That's personally a very it's not a very interesting analysis for me. Like, it's a very superficial way, I think, to analyze players in terms of who's going to produce more points, because it's not necessarily just the player that's going to control that output. It depends who they play with, depends the style of play that team plays, depends which division they play. They might play in a weak division against weaker. Like, there's so many factors that can go into skewing the results when it comes to just points, right? So for me, evaluating what player, again, it's very subjective. Like, what is important to you as if you're managing a hockey team and you're putting together a hockey club, what's important to you in terms of what you value as part of your team? So when you look, if you build that criteria and you have a checklist of the things that you're looking for, then yes, then you can go in and skill and puck handling and shooting and all those things definitely are going to come to play. But for me, call it what you want, right? But work rate, battle, they have certain statistics that you can look at, and that's why we were talking about Benson last year. Like, he's smaller, but he wins almost all of his one-on-one battles along the boards and things like that, right? So we could go on, again, it's very subjective in terms of how you evaluate players. So it would be interesting to see. I think you're right. Michkov might end up having more points, similar to how Shane Wright might have more points than Slavkovsky at the end of his career. It's not impossible. It's actually maybe quite likely that
Shane, you can't just go by one factor.
No.
All right, let's move on. We have other things to talk about. We talk about Demidov. Honestly, the update. Honestly, he did not play, so we won't see. He's going to play the second game of the SKA. And going to be ready about this one over there. This is bring me a couple of things here. And honestly, you guys were not with me yesterday. We go around very quickly because we have to move on. It will be the same thing about this. But are you surprised the Montreal Canadiens offer Mayu for Zegras? Now, the fact is they have other things come with that. But are you surprised for that? Or the name of Mayu was involved with a trade for Zegras?
Yes, I would be. I would be. I mean, I know that's what Anaheim would expect in return, but I would not be willing to give up Mayu for Zegras at all. I don't see that working out in the long run initially, because Zegras has been around a couple years. It may tilt in his favor, but I think as soon as Mayu is on an NHL team, he's going to show his real value. And defensemen are very hard to find, especially right-handed defensemen.
I do find it surprising, Coach, because we've heard Hughes say in the past that he doesn't want to improve one position by making himself super weak on, what do you call it? A parallel move, right? So you're making a change just for the sake of making a change, right? again, like I just don't see it being like, unless it's like an absolute something you can't say no to. I just don't see why you're moving any of those right-handed defensemen, either Weinbacher or Mayu. Like, it just, these are foundational pieces. There's a reason why they drafted Weinbacher so high, is because they identified that it's hard to find top 4 right-handed defensemen. So the report that's been circulating around is that trade, if it's real,
it's a rumor. It's a rumor, Marko.
It's a rumor, you know. So, but ultimately, if it was going to happen, it's if Montreal wasn't able to draft Demidov, right? But by drafting Demidov, they don't need Zegras. They don't need a player like Zegras anymore, because they have Demidov. So you kind of like check off that box, right? So let's say they weren't able to draft Demidov, they got Iginla or somebody else, which, by the way, I still like Iginla a lot. I'm still jealous that Utah has. I'm glad they picked Demidov, but I'm still, I like Iginla a lot. But anyways, if they hadn't got Demidov, maybe it would have made more sense to go get Zegras, but I still wouldn't have been in favor of them trading Mayu or Weinbacher to do that, because I think they still need to move from their position of strength, which is moving a left-handed defenseman. I know you're not going to be able to get a piece like that if you're trading Harris or Struble, but ultimately, I don't think they should move any of those guys unless it's for like an elite player that's going to help your lineup. And I just don't think Zegras is that guy.
No.
Great point about that one. I would just add this one over there. I think for me, I would not trade any players, at least for today, until next season. The 4 players I'm talking about: Rebecca, Hudson, Mayu, and Cooley. They are the 4 core, the 4 pillars, you want to call it. Before I evaluate them a little bit more and more and more to see what they look like, to not make another trade like a Sergachev or something like that. Defensemen take a little bit longer. Secondly, I will not trade one of them versus Zegras. I don't think so. This is a player will helping the Montreal Canadiens at long term. We know is what he can, what kind of player he can be, but I don't think so. It would be that kind of player, the Montreal Canadiens, or maybe. And I tried to get you something here, if you don't mind. That would be here we go. So Zegras is not my fit, and that would bring my subject, my missing piece of the Montreal Canadiens. So everybody in the chat, Marko, and then after, I want to ask me what is missing for the Montreal Canadiens to become really, really close to the Stanley Cup final. What it will take when you look the winner of the Stanley Cup, the Tampa Bay, Vegas, Colorado, and the Florida Panthers last year. What kind of piece they don't have inside of the pipeline or right now in the roster, and what kind of player you think they should get, and to have that kind of piece. So you know what, this is fix everything, and now we're going to become a solid team with that. Said that, I understand we don't know the development of many of them. They are still young, and we understand that. But if everybody from Demidov to Michael Edge to Rebecca to Hudson, Fowler, they become what they expect to be, it's still missing piece on the puzzle. But one specific piece I would like to hear from you in the chat, and of course in our time, Marko. And what do you think? What kind of players is missing? And just tell me one of you can start.
Okay, so I think I've talked about this a lot in the last over the summer. For me, without question, it's a center. You know, I think the whole rebuild right now hinges 100% on whether Doc is going to be able to be a second line center. And even though I hope so, like I've said many times here, I really like Kirby Dach. He's one of my favorite players on the Montreal Canadiens. But, not just the injuries, but we haven't really seen him play center for a whole season and everything else, right? So he has the template, he has all the tools to do it. But if we're talking about what is one thing I'm unsure about, and that if I'm building a team and putting together a roster, and I'm looking at the most.
That one, Marko, I would go a little bit. I'm sorry to cut you. I would give you one more step. That player would make you from the playoff to go all the way. Like they will make you like not losing first round, right? It will not make the playoff. I want more. I want more that player would bring all the way to the end.
Yeah, obviously goaltending is always the most important position for sure, but I have a lot of belief in Fowler, so I'm reasonably confident on betting on him, so I wouldn't put that as the thing that I'm worried about. For me, again, it's center. Like, Suzuki, because Suzuki is a very good center, but he's not like an elite number one center in the NHL. And my opinion is that you win down the middle, and with a solid foundation on the back end. So for me, again, like I've talked about, Montreal going out and getting different centers, I guess I won't go into it, but ultimately, if you can move out a piece and just give yourself an insurance policy when it comes to Kirby Dach being your second line center, and then you have many good third and fourth line centers coming up the pipeline like Beck and Kapanen and players like that, then I think your bottom six is fine, in terms of down the center. I just think if you can get a bigger center, at least over 6 feet, that can be as good as Suzuki, that's all I'm looking for. He doesn't need to be better than Suzuki, just as good as Suzuki. If you have Suzuki and another type of Suzuki as your second line, or switch them or whatever, that's the way Montreal is going to need to win. They don't have a Matthews, they don't have a McDavid, they don't have a Barkov, like a franchise kind of player. So you're going to need to have that depth. So in order to do that, you need, I think, another center, just in case Dach doesn't work out. That's my missing piece.
That.
Again, I agree. I think up the middle is always the way to go. That's where your strength has to be. I've always been of the mindset that if you have more than just 4 centermen, even if you play one or two of them on the wings, it's always a bonus to have that. I'll bank on the fact that either Fowler or one of the other goaltenders that they've drafted will eventually turn out to be their number one. Same thing with the defense. I think that there's enough players there that even if a couple, I hate to use the word bust, but just don't work up to expectations, the other ones will pick up the slack and you'll be okay defensively. So it leaves really the forwards. Once Demidov comes in, I think that helps to solidify that second line. But two big question marks would have to be obviously the health of Dach, and somehow.
But now, and after Dach is doing well.
Okay, so assuming he's doing well, you have a solid centerman, or you could use him as a winger that can play center as well, which is the added bonus that I was talking about before. I think ideally, if you can get
define what you mean by playing well. Like are his face-offs good enough? Like
top 6.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like
top 6, he's so probably he on the center get your 25 goal a season, like Vincent Trocheck example. He filled his spot right there.
Yeah, okay. 60 plus points is definitely second line. I personally think, as much as I love Suzuki, and I think he can definitely handle first line center, but if you can get somebody that's better than him at center and has just a little bit more size and plays the 200-foot game just as well, if not better, think how strong you are up the middle then.
Who do you trade if you get a better center to Suzuki?
Well, that's a different story, right? I think we're looking at
now. You have the new center. Yeah, Suzuki, Kirby Dach, Sakoski, Caulfield, Demidov.
Owen Beck will be up eventually as well. You still have Roy on your second line, possibly. And if he gets moved down to your third line, even better, because I think he'll be much more effective that way.
Coach, if you add a center to the top 6, and let's say this, because you have Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caulfield, okay, as your first line.
Okay.
You have the new center with Dach and Demidov as your 1A, 1B. Like to me, they're interchangeable, right? Like It looks like it would be that way. So
Okay,
to
so
me,
you have those players. Who is the best center? What kind of center it is?
like I said, to me, it's somebody comparable to Suzuki. I don't think they
Jack
can
Hughes.
afford to
Jack
get
Hughes.
no,
Yeah.
Jack Hughes is here to no, like I don't think you can afford to put Jack Hughes in that top 6, guys.
Well,
He's
Jack
gonna be
Hughes
like a
going.
10.
You're looking better to Nick Ski, so you have to go with Jack Hughes.
Yeah. I didn't say that. I said that he has to be as like relatively the same as Suzuki. So like a $7 or $8 million center, like in the next couple of years is kind of what I would look for. Not somebody better than Suzuki. I disagree with Intertop on that one. You can't afford it. You can't afford to bring a $10, $20, $12 million center to play over Suzuki and have that balance in your.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're assuming that's only through trade. I mean, what if this year they win the lottery because they're in the bottom 5 or 6 or 7? They win the lottery to go get the number one centerman there. Your prayers are answered for years to come. Yeah. So I mean, that's another route, right? It's
But as the GM,
so what kind of player they missing Montreal Canadiens right now? What kind of player are you looking for? You would like to add?
Well, right now they're not as strong.
There's nobody
as
right now.
Could be on the wing.
Let's go with the Fleur Panthers. All right.
Okay.
They have Barkov, Verhey, Reynard, Bennett, Ketchup, and they add Rodriguez. On the third line, they have Lundell, Tarasenko, Listoranen. But if you look about what they have, if I understand we don't have Barkov, but I think we have a really good top 6 in Montreal Canadiens when you talk about Kubidak, talk about Nick Suzuki, Demidov, Sakaski. That would give you 4. You have to add Cole Caulfield, put the puck like Beret, that's number 5. But we're missing number 6 right there. And this is what the missing piece, in my opinion. And that missing piece is we don't have any grits. We don't have physicality. And the only way, I did a video, the only way the Fleur Panthers win is being understood 2 years ago when they trade Huberdeau to bring Tkachuk. They played a year, they went to the final at that year, and they lost against Vegas. When they realized they was not physical, they was not finished their check, they was not hit. If you look about all their stats, compare the year they don't win and the year they win, they have 2 areas they really change and Palmaris focus. The goal against, they become the best in the NHL. They don't give a lot of goals. Secondly, they become the best team to hit. Barkov, they have 12 players hit over 100 hit last year. If you look about the Montreal Canadiens, we have only 1 forward on the top 6 hit 100 is Sakaski. All the rest, nobody. The 2 other players we have 100 more is Michael Peseta and Josh Anderson. So when you're looking about the missing piece, if you want to win, but that's what I'm targeting. That's what my vision is about. We need to add a players on the top 6, UFA, trade, draft, whatever it is. It's physical, he can hit well, and it can disturb the other opponent team. If you don't have those kind of players, obviously you can bring Jack Hughes or Michael Edge or whatever it is, Marko and Artap. It's not going to help the Montreal Canadiens and the playoff race when you're going to get there. That's what my missing piece for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. Well, so what you just described basically is like every team's missing piece, right? Because there's only 2 Tkachuks in the whole league. Right?
But we don't have many. You don't need to be a Tkachuk necessarily. I said in my video, you have only 1 Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk. But the team Bill Zito figure out what was missing. They're missing with Palmaris, we need to hit more. And they need to finish to be sure the defensive zone coverage. Ekblad, Forsling, Montour was all there before that. Right? They just bring Mikola, they bring OEL, and they bring Kulikov. If you think about this, Marko, this is not like the top best defenseman in the NHL. They are good. But they are not the great. But what they figure out, as a team, system-wise, they really protect the net and they not give a lot of goals and they hit. Everybody hit.
You're going all over the map here. Like, holy geez, you're going all over the map. You're talking about system. your original question is what is one piece that's missing? So, but now you're talking about like a whole philosophy of the team and like how they're going to play, protect the middle of the ice. That's a way broader question. I agree with everything you said, but the premise of your question was, is there one missing piece? I thought you meant like as a positional player.
Yeah.
Like everything you described. I think Montreal's back end, the pipeline of their back end, is shaping up to be pretty physical. Like Mayu's a physical player, Jack Guy's going to be a physical player, Gooley's a physical
Talking
player.
about forward, Marko.
Really,
forward.
Okay,
forward.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So, but you were talking about Florida as a template, right? Okay, so I think Montreal's back end compares very favorably in terms of physically and grit to what Florida had in their winning team. Now let's look at Florida's top six in terms of grittiness. So Tkachuk and Sam Bennett. You can't, and Barkov, right? So but Barkov is big, but he's not really that gritty, to be honest. Like he doesn't play that physical. No. He's strong.
Honestly, like Marko, he has 104 hits. He double his hit. So what do you understand, Marko? Like I said, they said, you know what? If we cannot hit, we cannot play. We cannot win.
But coach, again,
but you can do that with any player, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, but you're saying a gritty, like okay. So if you're saying that Montreal needs to, that this becomes a conversation more about Martin St. Louis' philosophy of how he wants his team to play.
But my question is back again: what's his missing piece to fit the Montreal Canadiens to go deep in the playoff?
Yeah, well, so
a big gritty centerman.
Yeah, I think a bit like McTavish, like to me, like McTavish would be the perfect guy. Like if you could move mountains, like to me that would be the perfect guy. If you could make that happen, like a McTavish kind of centerman that is gritty, that plays the right way, that would be I would move a lot of assets for Montreal to get a player like that. Right? There's not a lot of those players, so but I think again we're biting off more than we can chew in this conversation in terms of, like if we want to talk about what is winning hockey and what does Montreal need to do to get to be a winning hockey team, then I agree with everything you said. Like they have to learn to play well defensively. That's what I was saying earlier about coaching, like this man on like.
But my point when I bring Marko the Florida Panthers example is to show to you what they how they changed to become a solid team, but they add the missing piece of the puzzle. And they add with the toughness inside their team. They bring
they lost.
Bennett and Tkachuk.
They didn't. Yeah.
Bennett and Tkachuk are basically what you're, because Reinhardt's not pretty.
They didn't add anything really last year that brought them over the top. It wasn't.
No, but like I think what he's referring to, what he's referring to is that big decisional, like when Zito got there, he made the decision, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this huge risk. I'm going to trade Huberdeau, who is like holds the NHL record for the most points as a left winger in NHL history, just had like 100 points a season, and they make the decision to trade him. Absolutely agree with that. Like that was the right move. He read the situation perfectly. To me, coach, like let's say they get another center or another skilled forward to play in that top six. To me, the one player that is susceptible to being moved out eventually is Cole Caulfield, right? He's maybe going to be somebody it's really going to depend to him. Like we saw him take a jump last year in terms of being able to be a little bit more complete in his play, right? But so if he can continue to, like the thing we talked a lot about with Caulfield, he's never going to be somebody that's going to, win all of his board battles and like be a physical presence and all that, right? But if he can win 25% more of his stick battles and keep plays alive, because that's something people don't talk enough about Cole Caulfield's season last year. To me, and if you go back and look at our analysis of some of the games last year, and we were talking about how he wasn't scoring, go back and watch. The thing that I was talking about the most was Caulfield being able to keep plays alive, because before, if he didn't score, battles. Not as like he's never going to win physical battles, right? But like keeping the puck alive, either with a smart stick and stuff like that, right? So if he can continue to improve that, and then he'll, because let's not forget, we've seen Cole Caulfield make it to the Stanley Cup final, so we know he can be part of winning hockey, right? But he's going to need to continue to evolve that. But listen, coach, I think our visions are very similar. I think we We all want to get to the same place. We understand the type of hockey that Montreal is going to need to play. And I agree that, like, I'm curious, like, out of all the players that have been in the rumor mill, I'm surprised you're not. Maybe it's because you don't like pronouncing his name, Rutger McGroarty, but is not the closest player that's on the market right now that would fit the description
exactly.
you're talking
No.
about. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No,
Is that because you haven't seen him play yet? Is that because you haven't seen him play yet?
No, it's because the physicality of him is not going to be at that top 6 in the NHL. He's not going to be a prototype, the guy who scored 30 goals and he will hit everybody. He's a guy who can play on the third line on your team, but not on the top 6. No. I'm targeting a guy play at that level with physicality and to be a guy who's going to play under the skin to opponent team. And he's not that player.
How many players in the NHL do you think can score 30 goals and have over 150 hits? Like they're okay. I can name them, like, even in history, like you're talking about like Rick Tocchet, you're talking about players like that. Like, these are very rare kind of players. Like, I agree. If Montreal can go and find
Michkov at 100 hit, he had 90 points.
1 year. This
year. 50 goals.
This year.
100. But that's what they become. That's what they become.
Yeah, but that's because of their coach. Their coach came in, had a totally different philosophy. Maurice did. They took on the character of their coach, that team. Yeah. And that's what put them over the top, I think. It isn't because they went out at trade deadline time and they picked up a great defenseman and a rugged forward. And
this is a system. That's the system of the coach. But the missing piece, what Montreal is looking for, they don't have. They are too soft on the top. Until Kirby Dach play at that level we expect him to be, that's the time it would be the same level like Sakowski on level of the hit and physicality. That would be Kirby Dach. But after that, you don't have. Like Nitzke will have to increasing his physicality of this game. He hit hard.
Have some players
he play hard, but he's not have physicality yet about that. Cole Caulfield is not going to play 100 hit overall. And that we have to find that missing piece I'm talking about. A guy can be physical. We talk about Audrey Palat. Audrey Palat was not the most physical guy, toughness, but he was the puck retriever. He was a hunter. It was complete his play. He was angling the guys against the board, and he was pick up the puck for the rest of his teammate for his Kucherov a point. This is what I'm talking about, the missing piece of that kind of players, and we don't have that players right now, and the pipeline and the system of Montreal Canadiens right now.
Coach, I don't know. Like, I think again, like there's like we talked about before. There's certain players that there's a small number of players that are never going to be willing to play that way just because they don't want to play that way. They don't want to get hurt, and they're soft, like you said, right? I don't think Nick Suzuki is soft. I don't think he's a soft guy. I don't think Doc is soft. I don't think Slafkovsky is soft. We'll see about Demidov, right? Kind of how he pans out. But so really the only one for me is Caulfield that you could argue plays a soft game, right? So, and he's never going to be a physical guy. So to me, there's really only one guy out of your existing top 6 that wouldn't be able to play the style of game that you're describing. It really depends who else they add. This is exactly why we're saying they should never add a player like Zegras now, because now that they got Demidov, that's done. You can't have smallish.
You can't have a similar. Yeah.
You can't have all the same types of players, right? Like, you can't have like super skilled smallish forwards all in your top 6. So now that Demidov is there, the percentage of players that play that way, skilled games, we're done. You can't add more of those. So I agree. The next players that Montreal add to their top 6 have to be able to play that physical game. But again, it's really about having the willingness to do that, which goes back to the thing we're talking about, character and their willingness to win and work hard. And so I think we all agree, Coach.
Yeah,
we agree. We might sound like we disagree.
And we don't know, but it could be in the pipeline, Coach.
You're going to laugh at me, but they have that player. It's Josh Anderson.
Yeah, in theory.
That was the hope. That was the hope, right? When Bergeron
I understand that. I don't say he is You know what I mean? Like he would be that player, but he's the kind of player he could become that kind of players.
Yeah, big power forward type that's not
Yeah.
afraid to get dirty and play that type of game. But in all fairness, he doesn't come out every single game and play that way. Sometimes he's totally invisible out there, and that's a bit of a problem too. You need somebody that consistently will be there almost on a nightly basis, playing the same kind of game plan every time that he's there. It's not easy to find. Otherwise, I think a lot of teams would be doing that and going that route. And who knows? Like maybe we have it in our pipeline and we don't know yet. Like we're saying, maybe Florian Jackeye or somebody like Tuck. Who knows? They may be third line or fourth line wingers with that type of character, but they're not a second line. I can see that part.
But guys,
we're asking for
I want to connect
a Bob
N26. I just checking Tampa Bay Lightning, guys. When they went, Senko's 93 hit, Edmund 93 hit, Palat 124 hits, Colton 153 hits, and like I mentioned, Senko's Killon was 88. It was a team can hit most of the players. The only one did not hit well. It was Point at 75. On that one, Kucherov, of course, he never hit those kind of players, 32. But his team was, the defenseman guys was hitting Cernak, Sergachev, McDonough, Pokajin, and that's the team was. You have to hit. If you don't hit, you cannot win in the NHL. Unfortunately, about that.
I mean, coach, that's way more about style of play and coaching more than the play. Like you need the players that are willing to do it, but you have to have a system that allows. Not just the system, but the team philosophy to play that way. So Martin St. Louis is just as important as the personnel, in my opinion, at getting to that type of team.
That player. Yeah.
Let's move on for what we got here.
Next.
I tried to pick up the right one here.
Demidov keeps
this one. The final year. We talked about this yesterday. I want to moving more on the untouchable player, if you don't mind. That's a big subject. We can talk about this. That would create another kind of controversy. So why not to finish the show that way and go from that one? The untouchable guys, I'm going to give you the players, and then you can give me more about that. For me, they are the untouchable. I know the untouchable could be different ways. Franchise players, when Grossi got trade, everybody can trade. But if you want to have a core to build that team around those players, and they are, in my opinion, and they are also by different position. So Suzuki, Sakaski, Demidov, and Fowler, they are for me right now the four players on the untouchable player for the Montreal Canadiens. If you have other players, that's my question for everybody. Are you agree, disagree? Can you remove one of them, or can you add more untouchable? You can go that way. But what I did after that, I will not mention the rest. I can go the rest. Caulfield, Coley, Hudson, Rebecca, Doc, all my next players could become an untouchable in the next couple of years. But they are not there yet, in my opinion.
Go ahead, Intertop. I'll let you tackle this one first.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to start off by saying I think everything has to be preempted with, if you get the right deal, I think anybody's movable if you get the right deal for it. That's having said that and getting that out of the way, I wouldn't disagree with the four that you put there. The problem is, I mean, yes, we've seen good things out of Fowler, but we haven't seen that at an NHL level yet. It should translate, no doubt about it, but we haven't seen it there. So I'm not sure if I would just yet put him in that category. I would almost say the same thing about Demidov, but he brings a skill set that very few hockey players bring. So I wouldn't hesitate to keep him in the same level you did, Coach. The other players that are just below them, you could almost say the same thing about Gooley and Hudson. All deals aside, I mean, they bring a different style and a different needed aspect to the defensive core that is dearly missed and needed on this team. And I'm talking about, like, Hudson brings brings that offensive dimension, the ability to skate the puck out. He's got creativity. He's a unicorn in his own way. Goulie's your shutdown kind of a player who can also contribute offensively if you need. He can be on your second power play unit and will contribute. If he can stay healthy, that's the key thing with him. I think that those are two guys that I would include in that category as well. The rest, again, get the right deal, you can move them.
Oh man, yeah. For me, I agree. Pretty much with any deal, the whole Gretzky thing, right? Like anybody can get traded.
Yeah.
But ultimately, for me, and it's not because of my evaluation of him necessarily. It's positional. Is Reinbacher? Just because of the need of right hand at the right hand side, unless you're getting another right-handed defenseman that's comparable or something like that, or you have a solution to replace him. To me, it's more the positional need that's irreplaceable or that's untouchable, right? So to me, that's why like Mayu and Reinbacher are kind of indispensable right now. I would trade, and for the right piece, I would trade Caulfield, Goulet, or Doc before Reinbacher or Mayu. That might seem shocking, but it's just because of where Montreal is in terms of constructing their roster, right? Like they just don't have as much depth on that side. So it's not that I evaluate Reinbacher and Mayu. It's hard to not include Hudson in that because of the unique ability that he has and what he could potentially do for us on the power play, right? But so for me, the only players I would say, would I trade Reinbacher only if I knew that I had a solution to backfill that situation on the right side, right? So I don't know. That's a very tough thing. I agree with the ones that you have as untouchable for sure, but anybody is movable, coach, as long as you have a backup plan to replace them, right?
Yeah. Jazz have a Sakoski and Demidov. A lot of comments about everybody kept trade, everyone, everything like that. But I think, Marco, you mentioned, like I said at the beginning, I think the position is really one important facet or an area where you have to talking about untouchable. Because if you trade that player, you have to, like if you trade like Romanov, but you got Kaden Cody pick up the spot behind Romanov, right? And then they got Kirby Doc. So if they trade one players, like I don't know, I just said that. I don't say what happened, but if you trade Kirby Doc, Marco and Marco and after, but maybe Michael L pick up his spot, so you still have a movement, stay in that. But if you trade Fowler, Demidov should be your top. Sakoski should be your top. And right now, Suzuki is number one. So I don't see that one. I think Caulfield, I'm hoping can be trade. Cooley, I'm hesitate to trade him or almost put him on untouchable because I feel he's going to be the first pairing defenseman for Montreal. He bring a lot on the both side of the game and right, left, and everything like that. Leadership, I can go the way about Cooley. For me, it's Cooley. Hudson, I love Hudson. Like I see him so much to become a great hockey player, but I still have to wait. Why? Because
he hasn't played.
That is because his size, right? The size could be a problem a little bit a long term with the Montreal Canadiens. And when I said that, when it would be the time of the playoff, if they don't have, if they have better players around, bring some kind of physical activity on that, that would be something. I would be hesitate for Hudson. Reinbacher, the right defenseman right now is, for my opinion, the best skill-wise or everything like that. I think he could become the first pairing defenseman if it's top ceiling, high ceiling. If it, or worst case, be a second pairing. So I would not trade Reinbacher. Very close to be an untouchable, like you said, position-wise, it will be very important for him. Could be that. I would not put him on the untouchable right now.
But coach, here's another question though. So let's say we go with your scenario, right? So he fills that second center spot, 65 points, 55% in the dot, and he's filling that spot. Whoa, all of a sudden he goes up the charts in my untouchable, right? Because finding big centers that can play second line that
And
provides that
and
becomes very valuable.
that sort of goes in hand with what I was going to say, Marco. I was going to ask Coach, what would it take for you to consider Caulfield untouchable?
Nothing. I don't think
3
there's anything.
seasons, 40 goals.
Even then, I still would, even if he scored 40 goals, in my mind, like a winger, unless he's like a core guy, like, like you're like a Bob Gainey, or like, like somebody who's like, the core of your identity as your team. I think wingers are pretty much always expendable unless they're really the part of the
No,
identity of
Marco,
your team.
if he scored 30,
Yeah, but if he puts
three
in,
seasons,
if
40
he puts
goals,
in,
right?
Yeah,
He's going to be maybe
that's what
your
I'm
best scorer on your team. So
And then
for
you
me,
can't
I
get
would
rid
not
of
trade him at all. I would keep him.
right.
He wouldn't be untouchable, because again, like, it depends what your needs are, right? Like if say 5 years from now, Montreal might be in the top tier of scoring in the NHL. They might have one of the best scoring teams in the NHL, and maybe at that point you're a little weaker in another area for whatever reason, right? So it really depends. Like, to me, the areas that you're never going to want to weaken yourself is at center and on defense.
So, Marco, do you trade Carter Verhey? Do you think Carter Verhey is untouchable for the Florida Panthers?
I don't think he's untouchable. No, I wouldn't. I'm not actively looking to trade him, right? But if I had to choose between Barkov or Lindell or like or one of my one of my defensemen, like top 4 defensemen, then yeah, I would move him before I move my 2 top centers or my top 4 defensemen, 100%. Because you can always replace goals.
It all comes back to what is it that as a team you're missing, and can you address that in a trade? And who comes in the position of that player that you're trading away that will be maybe not as good, but close enough that will fill that spot?
For me, I would not trade a player score 40 goals because I don't have anybody can score 40 goals.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I asked you that question.
If I get Rantanen on my lineup for that players, I understand that. So the only way I can go higher is like everybody in the player we talk about. If he bring better, I can understand that. But I will not trade a player on my whatever is Caulfield or name the players score 40 goals on 3 seasons back to back. I will not trade him. He become my
coach. It's impossible for you. You can't. It's impossible for you to guarantee that statement, because if you're in a situation where you are up against the cap, right, and it's a choice between, okay, right now, my team is in the top percentile of goal scoring in the NHL, and Caulfield's contract, is whatever it is at that time that you're making to make that decision. So I have to make a choice. I'll have to either trade my second line center or one of my top 4 defensemen, or I have to trade my perennial 40 goal scorer. But then again, I can try to find 25 goals to replace that 40 goals, but at least I'm not losing something else. That's more important. Again, goal scoring, it's right now everybody is saying, oh my God, how could you even imagine trading Caulfield? He's our best goal scorer. But again, we're talking about today, right? But 5 years from now, when Demidov is there, Slavkovsky is at full maturity, that's going to change, right? Like, there's going to be more balanced goal scoring. So for me, listen, I love Caulfield. I'm not saying they should trade Caulfield today. His goals are not important. That's not what I'm saying. You're asking the question, who is untouchable in the future? Like, to me, Caulfield, a winger that's a goal scorer, depending on where you're at in your team development, you would sacrifice that over a centerman or a defenseman or your number 1 goaltender.
Me, I keep any player in my team score 40 goals.
Okay. That seems like
great player because we don't have. Do you know how many scorers have 40 goals in the show?
Does that mean that you're winning Stanley Cups, Coach? Because you have a 40 goal scorer?
But
what does that have to do
with Renard?
Yeah.
That's 2 right there.
Yeah.
2, that's it.
Okay. Remove Verhey, all the gold, pick up Lusterenin, 20 goal example. Do you think you're going to win?
Well, that's not what I'm saying, Coach.
Yeah,
I'm saying
it's a different argument.
I'm saying
you
that
said I'm going to bring you. You said I prefer to keep Montour at Verhey. This is an example that the Florida Panthers have. What they did, they let go Montour and they keep the guy the 42 goal.
Yeah, but they replaced him. Like they were able to use that money and go backfill that position on their decor.
But now,
what I'm saying is that
Schmidt, they don't get anybody.
But what I'm saying, Coach, is in that scenario, I'm not bringing Royce-Leinen to replace Verhage in that lineup. I'm keeping Royce-Leinen where he is, keeping his 20 goals on the third line, and then I'm supplementing. So instead of having a 35 or 40 goal scorer on the second line to play where Verhage is playing, I'll bring in another 25 goal scorer. So I'm losing like 10 or 15 goals. So I'm losing 10 or 15 goals in my lineup, but I'm willing to lose those 10 or 15 goals if I'm able to keep my second line center or one of my top four defensemen, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and the chat, we don't talking about Caulfield. We talk about a player score 40 goal. Just be sure the people understand that we remove the name Caulfield. We talk about if you have a player score 40 goal 3 seasons. For me, I don't trade that player.
Yeah, he's a keeper. Yeah, for sure.
I don't trade that player.
What if you have 3 other 35 goal scorers? You can't, like, it's too simple of a question. Like, there's too many factors to think of. Like,
just if you have a 3 scorer it's completely different after that.
No, like,
well, just have a look at in the league. How many players scored 40 goals or more?
Yeah,
I'm getting there right now. I try to get
it. It's not a lot.
Okay.
40 goals, you have 17 of them.
17,
okay.
Right? That's
all right.
Half the NHL.
The NHL this year, 17 of them. That's it.
Right.
So you go to remove one of the 17 best players who scored the most goals to get a 25 scorer? I don't think so. Now, if you have 5, it's of course your team is packed other players. But honestly, a guy score 40 goals, I would not do that. Like you talk about Marko, you talk about, I will give you a name right there. All right. Matthews, Reinhardt, Hyman, McKinnon, Panarin, Forsberg, Pasternak, Point, Kaprizov, Kucherov, Crosby, Marchessault, Rantanen, Trussardol, Stamkos, Nylander, and Boeser.
Yeah. So Besser is how we say his name. Out of all those players, those are all, like, Besser would probably be one that I would consider moving for various reasons, right? Just because he scored 40 goals doesn't mean I would not. He would be untouchable.
But he did only 1 year, Marko.
Yeah, right. It's not a consistent.
Yeah. Guys, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. So we're in this limbo world where Caulfield has scored 40 goals in 4 seasons in a row. I don't know, man. Like, it depends. Like, like if there's so many factors, right? Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I always would. The only thing I'd be willing to guarantee is that I would always prioritize my centerman. I would always prioritize my defenseman, and I would always prioritize my goaltending. And then on the wings is where you have to get creative and try to fit things in, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's different.
It's
difficult right now.
You prioritize your position before you I'll become your untouchable about that. So honestly, if you think about this way, if you have a goaltender number 1, your quarterback number 1, a center number 1, right? If you can add a winger number 1 or a forward, right? That was like a little bit what Montreal can have, but they're missing really a top defenseman number 1. That's what they don't have right now in Montreal Canadiens. It will be interesting what happened about that. I don't know. It's a really interesting show tonight. We go all the way. We don't talk about the final year. We talked yesterday. I don't know if you want to add something before that, Marko and Artap. If something interesting, if you want to talk about the final year or not.
Only thing I'll say, Coach, is that everybody seems very eager to move on from both Savard and Dvorak. And I think we've talked about this before, right? But if Montreal was to, let's say Montreal could re-sign Dvorak for at a substantial less price, right? Like let's say like 2.5 or 3 million or something like that, which is not out of the question based on kind of what he's produced over the last couple of years. If you look at which centers are going to be UFA next year, who's Montreal going to replace Dvorak with that can play third line center next year? It's not Beck's not going to be ready for that. Evans,
Well,
I don't think
that's the hope, Marco. That's the hope.
right?
If he comes
I
in
don't
and
think
has
those
a
guys,
good training camp, like
there's no
you
way.
can keep him at most one more year in the AHL, but that's it. He's ready to come up.
Yeah, like I'm not saying he can't come up and play on the team, but is he going to be ready? Do you want to put him in a position where he's your third line centerman right away? I would start him as like for next year, play him a fourth line C, like, but for me, anyways, I would consider maybe extending Dvorak just because he's going to be one of the, like, if you exclude, obvious ones like Draisaitl and players like that, in terms of like who could be an ideal third line center for a team, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better free agent next year than Dvorak, right? And as far as Savard goes, for me, we've talked about where Montreal is in this rebuild process. Like for me, I don't think Montreal's in the position anymore where they're just trading players at the deadline just to accumulate picks anymore. We're beyond that.
No.
So for me, Savard is more valuable, even if they have to walk him to free agency and just lose him for nothing, or if you re-sign him for another year, it goes year to year after this for like 1.5 or whatever. We know that he wants to stay in Montreal. I would just keep him. He's the ideal guy to be in and out of the lineup next year if Mayu and Reinbacher come up and play. And so to me, those are the two guys that I looked at are restricted. I think Jake Evans, like there's a lot of value there. Like he's a very good fourth line center. A lot of teams would be happy to have him in that position. But I think that's where Beck needs to start next year, if not some games this year. But I would be more comfortable having somebody come in for.
Yeah, I could see your point with Savard. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like he brings that experience even to a very young defensive core. With Dvorak, I like him too, but I don't know. I think it's time you make room for guys like Beck that are ready to come up and assume that role. You got to keep in mind that somebody like Dvorak really, he doesn't give you a full season. Like he's always pretty much injured. He's again, not that I would hold this against him, but he's a very quiet kind of individual that,
he's very popular in the dressing room. Like his teammates love him. Yeah, his teammates love him, and he's been injured over the last 2 years. But when he was in Arizona, he almost never missed any games, right? So it's really it's like Doc, right? Like just really bad luck over the last couple of years. He was pretty healthy before that.
But the point behind that, what we said, I let go Dvorak, and you bring Alex Newhook, your third center, behind Doc and behind, because Demidov is going to jump in on the top 6 next year. And that will bring Newhook right there. He's a versatile player. He's better overall at Christian Dvorak. The speed of the Newhook, the way he play, he fit very well. Dvorak, obviously, he have no speed, and it's just hurting you. Now you're going to sign him for 2-3 more years, and you think for $3-4 million.
Who's hurting you?
Block
Sorry, Coach, who's hurting you? So who did you say is hurting Montreal? Dvorak?
Dvorak, yeah.
How is he hurting them?
How many goals he has the last 2 seasons?
Well, when he was healthy, he was on track to produce pretty much what he was producing in Arizona, Coach, which is around 40 points. Like if you look at his points per game, when he was at Arizona, he was about 18 goals, 40 points, 45 points. That's fine for your third line center. Like I said, I know it's not a sexy thing to say because people don't like Dvorak. He's very boring to watch. He's not exciting to watch. He's been really injured over the last 2 years. All I'm saying is that if you look at who's going to be available next summer, who does much I don't like Intertap. I love you, man, but I disagree. I just don't think you want to put Beck in that position next year.
I know you put Alex Newhook, Marko.
No, I don't. He's not a center. He's not a center. He's a winger. I don't.
Yeah, but
put him
Evans has played there. I just look at Dvorak, and I don't dislike him. I just don't think he moves the needle for Montreal. Right? I think you can get somebody even outside of the organization if you had to, probably even cheaper, and would do the same
No,
job.
Okay. Let's Dvorak. His face-offs are incredible. He can play
Yes,
PK.
yeah.
He has amazing face-offs, good at PK,
But
and
so
is
is
actually historically he's a pretty good second power play unit guy. Like he can play good net front on the power play as well too. I think he's underrated. Like, yeah, I'm not saying he should be Montreal's second line center and that like they should sign. So if they could get him for
no.
like 2.5 for 2 or 3 years or something like that, I think he's a great bridge for Beck and for Kapanen. Just like guys, you guys have all been really concerned about having a bridge, for like with Matheson and Savard to not rush the defenseman. Well, guess what? Like rushing centerman is also just as bad as rushing defenseman. Like these are, if you want Montreal to be competitive this year and next year, you can't have like a rookie playing, top penalty kill minutes, taking defensive zones and face-offs in your own zone and things like that. Like, I think you just underestimate the importance of a good, experienced third line center. So to me,
you
it's
pay a guy $4.5 million, Marko, to get
I didn't say
the
that.
face-off.
No. He
The
said,
guy
Marko
have
said,
9 points,
if you can
Marko,
get him
in
on the
30
cheap.
game. 9 points. That would give him 27 points overall. Right? The year before, he had 28 points at 64 games with Montreal with only 10 goals at $4.5 million. This is the kind of type of the players you pay for the second line. Trocheck is at $5.5 million. So why to pay a player at 4.5 play on the third line? He gave only face-off. For me, it's not.
In all fairness, Coach, Marko did say if you can get him on the cheap, like he was talking, not 2.5.
But why Dvorak he go UFA? He will accept a $2.5 million.
But why is he getting $4 million if he's as bad as you're saying, Coach? Why is he? If all NHL teams think he's garbage and he's only going to score 9 points and all he's good at is face-offs, then he's not going to get.
Because some team need more need. I will give you an example. A team like maybe Chicago, San Jose will pick up him for a 3 years contract at 3.5.
I don't know. Like it depends how much he wants to play in Montreal.
Because they are under transition more. But Montreal cannot afford to have a player like him at $3.5 million.
And so, Coach, you're not wrong because you're almost reinforcing what I'm saying. And for those saying like, yeah, I agree. Dvorak is not the future, right? I'm talking about a guy who can come in over the next couple of years until Beck can kick him out and take over his job. That's all I'm not saying Dvorak is going to be on a cup-winning team 4 or 5 years from now. That's not what I'm saying. He's there for another couple of years.
It'll happen this year, I think, Marko.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I don't. Maybe, but I just wouldn't bet on.
I mean, we have to wait and see. But I've just seen, like, I'm really bullish with Beck. I think everything you described about Dvorak, I think he can produce.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the experience, right, is the key. So sorry if I'm hurting A2's brain, and because again, it's not a sexy topic, right? but like. Honestly, go look at and Coach, you're reinforcing my point. If you look at the centers that are going to be available next year, let's say Montreal comes to the conclusion that Beck is not ready to play third line center, right? Really, it's a choice between Jake Evans and Dvorak in terms of who you have internally that you can re-sign internally, because there's not a lot of great options on the free market for somebody that could play that role. Go and look. Like you'll see there's not a lot of really good options there. So I'd be open. Like you could make an argument for Jake Evans, but I think he's gotten a lot more opportunity to play up the lineup. And I think Dvorak is probably a better solution than Jake Evans as a third line center.
I agree with you about that one. If you don't talk about money, all right. I think overall, Christian Dvorak, he can. If you remove the money over that, right? I think Christian Dvorak, he could pick up your second line if you need it for a couple of nights or a guy out for 10 games. Christian Dvorak have that kind of stuff. But that would bring my point. I would prefer to have Alex Newhook as
not a
at
center,
$2.9 million on the third line, or to get a player on UFA at $2 million if you are not ready. But it's the time at some point to bring some young players in the core on the bottom six. And that will open a spot where I think you see the list, Marco. Armia, Pesada, Evans, Dvorak are 4 of the bottom 6 on that. So I will open up maybe 2 of this. And maybe one of them could be center. Who knows what it could be that way. But in my opinion, I think I would not keep Dvorak around the team. I would move on and to get a cheaper players on the salary cap for the Montreal Canadiens. And for me, it's Alex Newhook. Alex Newhook cannot be on the top 6.
Yeah, he's a winger. Ideally, he's a winger on your third line. It would be perfect. Is where he should end up, right?
That can play center in a pinch.
Yeah, Marco Anderson, he can play. It would be maybe better on the winger, but we don't have the choice right now. It's another year of transition to prepare the rest of what's coming.
I just gave you a choice. Like, you can't say you don't have a choice. If you have a choice to re-sign Dvorak at $2.5 million for 2 years, that's a choice, right? Like, you do have a choice. To me,
I can sign any player at $2.5 million. I will look around what he have. But in my opinion, Marco, why he would accept to stay in Montreal at $2.5 million?
Because he likes playing in Montreal. And he might be like similar to other players, like Monahan. If he knows that he's had a couple
one deal. Now I would give him a $2 million 1 year to try to see to rebuild his career and to see what it look like. It would not hurt the Montreal Canadiens at that level.
Yeah, he didn't accept. And again, 2.5. Again, the cap's going to go up, right? So what I'm saying today is 2.5. 3.5 might be the new 2.5, right? So again, in terms of cap percentage, if you go look at who's available, like you guys are like, I'm hearing people in the chat saying, oh, Beck is already better than Dvorak. Like, guys, like the guy has played like 0 games in the NHL. I really like Beck, but whoa, like, this, like you can't just kind of throw these in and like expect them to, like, especially like you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like if you want Montreal to be like getting better, to progress this year, Coach, you've said this before about Matheson. Like, what's going to happen with Matheson's minutes? If you trade Matheson, who's going to play all these minutes? Well, I know Dvorak in theory has been injured, right? But we've seen what happens when nobody can play those minutes. Montreal's way, way worse. They're much, much better as a team when Dvorak is there as a third line center, eating up those important minutes, right? So listen, I know I'm not going to win anybody over because Dvorak is like, if I was somebody like trying to sell you something, Dvorak is the hardest thing to sell because he's but
exactly, Marco, is the same way when we talk that way. Same thing with situation with Anderson example, right? Anderson, because Anderson, the disappreciation of the Anderson because his salary, his value is lower on what he produces. Same thing with Dvorak. Dvorak does not play at this moment at $4.5 million.
I don't know. Like, again, if you go look at his points per game, like if you take away the injuries and stuff, right?
We have 9 points 30 game. I see this right now. 9 points. So multiplied by 3, it's 27 points, Marco. $4.5 million third line. That will give you 12 goals per game per year. That's not good enough.
In my book, Dvorak is like a 15 to 18 goal scorer, about 40 points. That's what he should give you when he's healthy, right? In a season where he's in and out of the lineup with injuries, it's impossible to really kind of gauge what he really is. But historically, that's what he is. He's like good for 18 goals, 40, 45 points. That's who he is. So for me, that's absolutely worth. If you can be on the PK, do all those things, 4.5 million, that's market value for a guy like that in today's NHL.
Another thing, Marco, okay, 56, 64, and 30 game. That is 4 years in NHL so far. So for me, not only that, but if he can play healthy, it's not another player. I would not go that way. So for me, I give him $2 million. That's it for 1 year. But that would be. I have Alex Newhook. And Alex Newhook cannot be on the top six over there. Bring a win back, bring Newhook on the center. If you need face off, bring back on the face off, and then move Newhook after that winger if you want to do that. That will help the Montreal Canadiens. I would prefer to have back to learning right there. And you have also Newhook can be there on the third line to keep Dvorak, in my opinion. You still have Jake Evans and the backup at the four. I think at the end of the day, you cannot trade or you cannot let both of them get out of the team, at least, or you have to get someone or you have free. But I would not let both of them leave the building.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like I was talking about next year, right? So I agree. You can't move both Evans and Dvorak, right? Like you need one of those, right? I would prefer that Beck learn the ropes on the fourth line. But again, who knows? Like he could absolutely adapt much faster than I'm anticipating, and I hope so. Like who doesn't like? I like Beck, and I hope that he adapts that quickly. It's just not very likely, right? So all I wanted to point out is that right now, you're looking at this list. Almost every Habs fan is looking at Dvorak and David Savard and say, "Yeah, they're gone for sure. Don't even think about it." Da, da, da. All I'm saying is that before you kind of go ahead and make that move, you have to consider, okay, you're betting on Beck or Kapanen to play, if you have to keep Evans, then you're one of those guys, you're betting that they're going to be able to carry the mail as your third line center. And if that doesn't work and you decide in the offseason that, okay, you know what, I'm just going to sign a UFA for a couple of years to bridge them a little bit more. Well, guess who the best candidate is? It's Dvorak. If you look at the centers that are available that fit that profile, the best guy available is Dvorak. There's not a lot of guys that are available as a UFA. That's the only point I'm making.
I'm glad I'm not going to the bed right now because I cannot sleep after what I heard tonight.
We're not going to agree. We're not going to agree on it. I mean,
I saw somebody compare me to Jean Perron in the comments. All right, I won't take that personally, but okay, that's all good.
But I can understand your point of view, but I just disagree about this. It's a little bit, Marko, why we don't trade, we are a little bit worried about Savard Madison, right? Because we don't know the development yet, what's coming behind that, right? So we don't know what Beck is going to look like, and we don't know what Kapanen, I can go on the list like that. Same thing with the defenseman. What Rebecca, he's going to be ready. Mayus be ready. If they are, and Barron do well, maybe Savard is maybe available at trade deadline. Same thing with Kenan Coley, with Madison. If Kenan Coley play very well on the left side, and the right defenseman, it looked like set up properly. That open up maybe Madison out too. So it's just like projection without knowing yet the development of those players, and that's what the Montreal is. Exactly. Another year of cycle about that. So that's maybe the best way to describe that. And we can go all the way like that for another hour, but I think we have to step up here because the people. And A2 leave the building because he was sorry to hear the Dvorak name in the chat. We love you, A2. I love that one over there. What a great show tonight. We got a lot of conversation. And don't forget, we'll be back Wednesday. We're going to be back Sunday night with a weekly report. We did pretty good today. Guys, but we have a couple of subjects we can talk about this for sure. And then we'll be back next Wednesday with a notebook. Gregory Amel is coming. Frank maybe coming in August or maybe at the beginning of September. So expect them to be part with Marko on the notebook every Wednesday night. And then the Montreal Expose. Be ready. August 20, 2024. We're going to talk about Montreal Expose. I know if you're not a big fan of the baseball, but I'm sure at some point you was remember a couple of events about the Montreal Canadiens, Montreal Expose. Which player do you remember the most? You like your favorite? And it's fun events. Which game? The Denis Martinez, and they can go all the way like that. So it will be August 20. But last word, Mr. Nartap and Marko, one by one, and then we leave the building.
Look, it's been a bit slow lately, but we look forward to the NHL finally coming around and seeing these players in training camp, and it shouldn't be too much longer.
Marko?
Holy cow, let's drop the puck already. Holy shit, it's only August. I can't believe it. But guys, by the way, I'll probably be able to join you on Sunday. My wife is going to be away again away for about a week. So I'll be a bachelor again for about a week. So I'll probably be able to join you on Sunday if you'll have me. We can talk about Dvorak at least another 30 minutes.
You know, what is funny is like every time you prepare a show, you make some content. You say, okay, we can talk about this now. Oh, we don't have a lot of things to talk about. But when we turn the switch on, guys, I'm never worried about something because there's something to talk about for many hours. So it's not like we have nothing around the Montreal Canadiens. One subject can create a lot of controversy. That's all about. And the good thing about this, guys, because we have great people in the chat and we appreciate each one of them. And don't forget, guys, to click on the like before you leave the building. And of course, they are
awesome.
They are
amazing.
They are
the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you.
Yes, they have greatness inside of you. And we thank all of you guys in the chat tonight, the co-hosts in our time and Marko. And until the next time, be well, be out, find a way not only dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the second half of one in our top.
You're 2024.
You did it again. Have an amazing, great night, everybody. See you Sunday night. Marko, enjoy the rest of your night with your dog walking somewhere in Hawkesbury.
Thank you, kind sir. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Oh. Booyah!